If you want to create or start a brand new podcast this year and you have no idea where to begin, well, I'm so glad you found this video because I've been able to help dozens and dozens of people launch successful podcasts. And in this video, I'll be sharing my 5 tips on how to start a podcast for beginners. So let's get into it.
You gotta just press record.
Hey, what's up? It's Omar Takori with Think Media. Now, if you are looking to really start a podcast and you wanna do it the right way, then I would write down the things that you're gonna learn in this video. And I just wanna thank the sponsor of this video, which is Podcastle. I'll be using Podcastle throughout this video to show you how to do certain things when it comes to the podcast creation process. However, everything I'll be teaching in this video will be principle based, so you can apply it to whatever software or tools you decide to use. But tip number 1 is to name your podcast and create your podcast artwork. When deciding on a name or picking a name for your podcast, I would encourage you to not get picky or overthink it because you can change it later on. One of my favorite podcasts, The Game by Alex Hormozi, he actually had a different podcast name for like the first 5 years, and then he decided to switch it to The Game. And honestly, one thing you could do when naming your podcast is decide on a random word and then just put your name at the end of it. That's what I did. It's The Department with Omar El Takori, and then your podcast will become what it's supposed to be. Now, when it comes to creating the podcast artwork, number 1, you can make it yourself using something like canva.com. Canva is an incredible tool. Literally search podcast artwork in the search bar, and it's going to give you so many templates, and you can literally swap out a stock photo of somebody and put yourself. It is important that you keep in mind the dimensions that is required across all the podcast platforms. The second option I would encourage you with is Fiverr.com, and that's where you can actually find very inexpensive graphic designers who can create a custom artwork for you. But either way, choosing one of those 2 paths and getting your artwork done is going to get you ready to start your podcast. Now that you got your podcast name decided and your podcast artwork done, it's time to actually create your podcast. And what you're going to need is a podcast distribution site. And there are so many to choose from, and they all do the same thing. They all allow you to upload your audio file to the site itself, and then it distributes it to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, and everywhere people listen to podcasts. And what's cool about Podcastle is they are a host for podcasts, so you can actually use them to distribute your podcast. And it's so simple. Simply go into podcastle.ai, go to My Show, then you're going to select Create New Show, and then simply follow the prompts and the directions to get your show on these platforms. And essentially what you're doing to get your podcast on all these platforms is you're going to connect the RSS feed to Apple, Spotify, Google Play, and all the other options that they give you. Super cool and so easy for the creator because you just upload to one place and then it distributes it to many others. Tip number 2 is to record your first few episodes. It is important that you do start your podcast with more than 1 episode. Now, you have the option to release your first few episodes one of 2 ways. The first way is to release it 1 per week. And if you recorded at least 4 episodes, what's cool is you're going to give yourself a month's worth of time to get that 5th episode shot. Many podcasters start off the get-go and they no longer are podcasters because they run out of episodes. And to start off with some margin is really wise. The second way you can do this is actually record just a few short episodes and release them all at once. So when you do release your podcast, you're giving your listeners or watchers 3 episodes to listen to right off the get-go, which is really cool. The first episode, maybe you want to introduce yourself and why you started this podcast, and then the second and third episode could be more standard as to what you had envisioned for your podcast. But that is definitely more on the strategic side of things. On the more technical and practical side of things, you do want to make sure that your podcast sounds good. When it comes to deciding on a mic to capture your first few episodes, I want you to consider using the Podcastle app on your smartphone and your built-in mic on your phone itself. This is a great way to literally get started today after you watch this video, because right now you are listening to the onboard mic of my iPhone 15 Pro, and we can make this sound so much better like this. And now it sounds like a $400 microphone that I'm using, and I'm literally just using my smartphone. With the click of a button, added Podcastle's Magic Dust, which is AI to make your any audio really sound this good. But this is the power of just using your smartphone. However, if you do want to buy a mic, let's talk about a few options. The first kind of mic I would encourage you to look into is getting a dynamic microphone. These are the kind of mics that make your voice sound like this, like very rich and radio podcast-like. And the first one I would encourage you to check out is the Samson Q2U. This is a $70 mic kit. Comes with a stand, comes with all the cords you need to make it work. And this mic sounds phenomenal for the price. It really can't be beat. If you want a more professional looking microphone, literally for about $100, you can get the Samson Q9U, which is a great microphone. The thing is you're gonna need a mic boom arm, kind of like what you see right here, or a boom stand or something to just hold the mic up. But what's cool about both of these mics is they have the option to be used with a USB cable. So if you want to use it with your computer or laptop, or you could plug it in via XLR if you'd like to into a recorder of some sort. But what's cool about Podcastle is you can actually plug multiple USB mics into a computer and just record directly inside of Podcastle the various different tracks depending on however many mics you're using. But that is a dynamic microphone. They sound phenomenal and you don't have to break the bank. If you're looking for more of a discreet and maybe portable solution when it comes to creating a podcast, then I would encourage you to check out one of Rode's wireless mics. You can go with either their solo mic, which is the Rode Wireless Me. This is a $150 mic that plugs into your computer, your laptop, your smartphone, or even your camera. However, if you plan on doing interview style type of content, then I would encourage you to go with the Rode Wireless Pro. This is a dual wireless mic solution, comes with lavalier clip-ons and everything you need to be able to capture two people, and they make it so easy to use. And I'll be sure to post links down to them in the description below, so if you want to check those out. Now, I just mentioned that you might have an in-person interview type show, which is awesome if you do, but I would encourage you to potentially consider having at least 2 to 3 people for your podcast, even if it's a virtual conversation. And you can actually send the link to your Podcastle to guests that you'd like to interview or have on your show. And what's really neat about having multiple people on a podcast is studies have proven that when multiple people are talking, it actually is more engaging than if one person is talking. And the reason for this is that every time somebody else talks or shares their thoughts or observations around something, is that it re-engages the listener or the viewer. So you could totally have a solo podcast, but you can also use Podcastle to conduct a podcast with multiple people and not have to be in the same place physically, which is awesome. Now, when it comes to recording video for your podcast, I want you to consider truly turning on a camera, even if it is your smartphone or if you're using a regular camera. And really the main reason why is not necessarily uploading the full length, video of your podcast, which you totally could, and I would say you should, but it would be more so to upload short bite-sized pieces, 60, 30-second clips from your podcast and post those on your Instagram, your TikTok, and your YouTube Shorts. This can potentially get more people aware of your podcast, and it's better to do this via video because video on these platforms are really king. And what's cool about Podcastle is that they have a video editor that you can use to create these clips, highlights, and vertical videos for social media. What's also cool is you can even bookmark these clips as you record your conversation or your podcast by clicking on the Add Highlights button. And this is really gonna save you time on the back end by creating these clips. And what's cool about Podcastle is if you are using an Apple and you use the app, you can actually just turn on the camera and capture both video and audio. But on a computer or laptop, if you have it pulled up, you can actually use a webcam. You could plug in your smartphone as a webcam, or you can actually plug in an actual camera using potentially the USB cable of a camera or an HDMI capture card. They actually have a new feature called Cinematic Blur, and this will enhance your video quality to look super professional, sharpening the focus of the speaker while creating a bokeh or blurry background effect, which is really cool. When it's time to actually record these episodes, I just want to leave you with the idea to really keep it simple. You don't need to have a polished podcast. One of my favorite things about podcasting is that the conversational, imperfect element of it is so highly accepted. Like, your retention for your audio podcast is going to be so much better than a retention for a YouTube video. And so don't overthink it. Just record those podcasts, and then it'll be time to do tip number 3 once you're done, which is now to edit your podcast. Now, editing your podcast is not like editing video, so you don't have to be overwhelmed or intimidated by the idea of editing your podcast, because I just mentioned moments ago that it shouldn't be polished, right? But there are some things that Podcastle has to actually enhance the viewer's experience of your podcast. And I did mention early on the Magic Dust AI feature, which it will just clean up your audio and make it sound super professional. But they also have AI silence removal, and this will automatically remove very long pauses from audio tracks if that's something you'd like to do. They have auto leveling, and this would optimize sound levels and volumes from multiple speakers with just one click. So if I talk louder than my guest, or if my guest talks louder than me, then what it's gonna do is it's gonna bring it all to one volume, which is awesome for the listener's experience. Another really cool thing that you have with Podcastle is you have access to their royalty-free music library with over 7,000 music and sound effect tracks that are searchable by genre, mood, or instrument. And you could truly find the right soundtrack for your podcast. And I launched my podcast and I didn't really put music in the beginning. And I had a friend say, hey, why don't you just put in like at least 8 seconds of a cool song and then fade it out? And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. So I actually added a little bit of music just to set the vibe of my podcast before you get into it. And it goes a long way. One cool feature you get access to with the pro version of Podcastle is filler word detection. So if you say or like a ton, maybe you would want that feature so that you can have that removed. If you I know people that literally say like before everything they say. However, I would encourage you, listen back to your audio podcast so that you are aware of those things that you could potentially be doing. Tip number 4 is to now publish and promote your podcast. Give your podcast episodes a title. And something I like doing is I like putting a title that definitely will draw somebody to want to click on. And then I do like adding the episode number. If you are maybe unsure of a title to decide on, Podcastle does have a auto transcription feature. They got all the features, and it'll actually help you decide on a title, which is really cool and neat. But deciding on a title is really key, because when somebody subscribes to a podcast, it's truly the title that will convince somebody to want to click on that episode to then want to hear it. So now we're gonna take the audio and we're gonna put it into the show that we have created. Depending on what distribution platform you decided to go with, you're either gonna upload your audio to this platform, or in Podcastle's case, you're just gonna add it to your show. And doing this will make sure that this audio will be distributed to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, and more. If you plan on releasing the video version of your podcast and upload it to YouTube, I would encourage you to make sure that you do upload this to YouTube as a podcast. When you go into your YouTube studio, just go to the upload button and select new podcast, create a new podcast. Or if you already have uploaded them in the past, maybe you have a few episodes, you can do a new playlist, or create a playlist first and then add that upload to the playlist. But that's how you properly upload a podcast to YouTube. And the reason you want to do this is because YouTube will give a cool experience to watchers and listeners on the YouTube Music app for people who pay for that. Now, publishing your podcast on these platforms is definitely a great first step, but the next thing you definitely want to do is promote your podcast and publish content around your podcast. Tell people that the new episode is out. Maybe you want to post a preview clip of your podcast. I talked about creating very short vertical videos from your podcast to make people convinced to want to listen to your podcast. This is a really cool, awesome strategy for you to be consistent on social media, which will in turn allow you to grow an audience. If you aren't a savvy video editor, there's actually a really cool AI tool called Opus Clips that will allow you to upload the full-length video version of your podcast, and it will literally, using AI, cut out and format vertical videos for your social media. So really, there's no excuse to not promote your podcast on other platforms. All it takes is one podcast episode for you to win a fan and a subscriber to your podcast. Tip number 5 is to repeat. You want to continue to capture, edit, publish, and promote your podcast as you are now a podcaster. My friend and very well-known podcaster, David Shands with the Social Proof Podcast, he would say consistency is the only cheat code. And truly, if you want your podcast to gain traction, just commit to never stopping. Like, you are now a podcaster. Doing this over time, you will see traction and you will see growth. If you want to check out Podcastle yourself, be sure to check out the link down in the description below. And if you want to check out another video from us here at Think Media, just click or tap the screen. Can't wait to see you in a future video. Peace.